Hey guys, it's Kristin. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this really cute little candle holder that looks like a leaf. It's really fun to make and it really didn't take a lot of time. And if you've never done anything with clay before, then this is a great project because it's not super difficult at all. Now before we jump into the video, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe and then don't forget to hit this bell so you're alerted when I upload a new video. So let's jump into it and I'll show you how to make it. For this project, you will need the following items. Various colors of paint, depending on what color you want your leaf to be, and paintbrushes. You will need some clay. It can be oven baked or air dry. You will also need some sort of leaf cutout, so you can either do paper or you can do like a cookie cutter. And then you will need a bowl. So just depending on the size of the leaf you want. If we're making smaller leaves, you'll need a smaller bowl, and then obviously for a bigger leaf, you'll need a bigger bowl. I'm also going to be using a sharp knife, or you can use an X-Acto knife, and then I'm also going to use a rolling pin, just so I can smooth out the clay. And then for the bigger leaves, you will need tin foil. So the first thing you'll want to do is cut out your leaf if you're going to use the printout, or get your cookie cutter ready. And then you want to preheat your oven to 275. So here's my cutout, and now what we're going to do is roll out the clay, and then I'm going to trace this. So now I have the clay and it's pretty soft, so we're going to start squishing it down. And this is where sometimes a roller can come into play, because it'll take you a while to flatten this out enough to cut out your leaf. So I'm gonna use the roller and we're gonna just flatten this out more. So you wanna roll it out so it's not too thick, so you can kind of see the thickness on this. And then you also wanna make sure it's big enough to fit your cutout. So whether you're using a cookie cutter or if you're using a paper cutout, but you just wanna make sure it fits. So now what I'm gonna do is line this up. I'm gonna push on this, and the clay is tacky enough where it should hold the paper. So we're just gonna make sure all the edges are down like this. So if you have an X-Acto knife, that's gonna work a lot easier. I cannot find mine anywhere, so we're gonna use a knife, and I'm just gonna cut along these edges. Now as you get through each edge, you're gonna wanna take the clay off, just so that it's out of your way, and it makes it a little bit easier. So I'll get rid of that. And don't worry about these edges because you can kind of see it's a little bit rough. We're gonna fix that once we're done. So just go ahead and cut out the entire leaf. So now I've cut out the entire leaf and we're gonna lift this off. There we go. Looks pretty good. So as I mentioned, the edges here, all we're gonna do is once we pick this up is we're gonna just kind of bend these in, and you're just gonna rub the edges, and it really, I mean, you won't even be able to see those anymore, so you just kind of push them in. So obviously be really careful, you don't want any of this bending. Now a couple of the ends got a little weird when I cut them, so the nice thing is because it's clay, you can just kind of reshape it. So here I'm just kind of reshaping the end of this one because it wasn't pointed. So now I'm gonna add just a tiny little bit of detail to this. So leaves have a lot of veins in them, so I just want to put some detail in before we bake it. So I'm going to put a line straight down, and then I'm going to have a couple go out into the leaves. So we're going to have one go like this and one like this, and then leaves always have like them coming off the side as well. So we're going to do just a little bit on the side. So here's a close-up of the lines that I put in. When you bake it, not all of these are gonna probably show up. Sometimes they do fade out. But first what we need to do before we bake it is we need to place it in the bowl to curve it. So now just remember, you do not have to curve it. You can just bake it flat. I just prefer it with a curve. So I'm gonna place it on this bowl. All right, so this is obviously a little bit too big, so we're gonna need to adjust that. So I'm gonna place a smaller bowl inside here. That should help it to keep the shape. There we go. So you can kind of see it's just slightly curved. So you can, if you want this as a deeper curve, you can kind of just push it in a little bit more, but I just want a very slight curve. I don't want it to be a lot. So now that I've got that all set, I'm gonna put it in the oven for the recommended time and temperature. So now while that's baking, I'm gonna make another one using the cookie cutter. So this one is much larger. So I'm gonna line this up, and then we're just gonna press down. So it's just like making cookies. I'm gonna rip all this stuff off this side. And then we're just gonna lift that off, and there we go. So now we're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put a couple lines in it, and then we're gonna place it in a bigger bowl. And actually, before I keep going, I do want to mention one thing. This one has a stem on it, so if you want that on there, you can, or you can just cut it and leave it off. So now I'm going to place this one in a bowl, and then we'll bake it as well. So now with this bigger leaf, I lightly greased this. I sprayed like one little spray and then rubbed it around with my fingers because I don't want this to stick, because we're going to place this flat right on the cookie sheet. And now we're going to raise up the sides using some tin foil. So with the tin foil, I'm just going to place it under the leaf because we want to lift this up, and I pretty much need to go around the entire thing the same way. So we're just going to lift this up a little bit like that, and then I'm going to go around and get all the sides lifted up. Okay, so now I have all the edges lifted up. Now the reason why we're doing this is because this is slightly thicker and it's a much larger piece of clay. And the first time I did this, I used a bowl like the other one, but unfortunately the center was still kind of wet clay and the outside edges were hard as a rock. So this needs to be flat right here so that it can cook the same way as the outside edges. So now my leaf is done and you can still see some of the lines in there. So now we just need to paint it. So here I've gotten some colors. Obviously like these colors are too bright, so what I'm gonna do is mix like orange and red to make more of that leaf color. And then we're gonna paint the whole thing and then we put some accent colors in it. Okay, so now we're gonna start painting this. And you can see it's still an orangey color, but it's not like a super bright orange because some leaves are like that, but once they fall, they do not look like that. And you can see the lines in the paint, so it kind of looks cool. It looks like the veins of the leaf. So I'm just going to paint this whole thing. All right, so there's the whole front of it, and now I'm going to just do the side and the back. So my leaf is dried, and you can see it's just kind of plain orange. So we need to add some highlights. So I'm going to highlight the center here where these veins are, and we're going to put a little bit darker edges. And I'm using this photo here as inspiration. So I will leave that URL in the link so you guys can use that too if you want. So all I did was use the same color as this, but just add some red to it. And now I'm going to paint a little bit on the edges. Because the leaves don't have the exact color, you know, all the way around. So we want to kind of color this a little bit. So I'm going to do all the edges. Don't worry about making this exact. Kind of the imperfections is what makes it really good. We're going to go over the veins with a couple colors, but the first one I'm going to do is the same color, and I'm just going to go over the veins of it. So I'm just going to kind of go down the middle here really gently. I'm doing it super light because I just want it to show up a little bit, not a lot. So just turn the contrast down a little bit so you could hopefully see it a little better. It's kind of hard to see with the sunlight, but you can kind of see it's just a little bit darker on those lines. So now I'm going to use a much smaller brush, and we're going to use some yellow. This is the yellow that I'm using, but this is way too bright. So I do need to dull this down with either some red or brown. So you kind of want it to be almost like a mustard color. And with not very much on your brush at all, we're going to just highlight the bottom a little bit. And then we're going to go through these lines again. And as I'm painting, if you see some bigger globs, just take your finger and run it over. Because like I said, we don't want it to be yellow. We don't want you to see a big yellow line. We just want there to be like a little bit of a different color there. Okay, so now the last thing I'm going to do is, I just want to go over this one more time. So this brush has like no paint on it pretty much. I dunked it in and I wiped it all off. And I'm just going to do a light coating over it. That way if you have any extra like spots that are too yellow, this will kind of like blend it in. You can do your leaf green if you want, you know, different colors, things like that. And now I'm just going to go over it one last time with the dark red. So you do not have to do all this different coloring and stuff. I'm just trying to get it to look as much like a leaf as I can. And I kind of like how the dark, you can see it really highlights those veins in it. So now the last thing is, this is totally optional, but you can take some of your clear spray paint or paint and just do a coating over that. And that's pretty much it. You can see it's got a little bit of a shiny coat on it. I wish you guys could see the detail and the coloring. It's not really capturing that great in the camera. So here is the bigger leaf and the smaller one. I made the smaller one like a lighter orange, and then this one is more of a darker orange. I just wanted to see kind of what the coloring difference is. In the camera though, it kind of looks the same. But this one holds one, so it's like a little smaller one. And then this one can hold 3. Or what you can do, if I take this off, we can put like a bigger one on there. If you have like a bigger candle, something like that. So it just really depends on what you want to do with it. You can also just use this. It is curved enough where you can use this for like change or keys and things like that, because there is a significant curve to it. But for us, we're going to be using these as candle holders. So this is how they turned out. Alright guys, so that's it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to leave me comments below so that I know you were here, and also leave me video suggestions for other how-to videos you'd like to see. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and then hit this bell so you're alerted when I upload a new video. And I'll talk to you later.